Hello, friends. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at expressions in English that come from the metaphor that life is a game of poker. And I call this one, "You've got to know when to hold 'em," which is a line from a very famous song by the singer Kenny Rogers, who unfortunately recently died. But when he was alive, he made a movie and a song called The Gambler. And this is one of the lines from the movie. You've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. All of this is talking about life, not about poker. So let's get into the lesson. Poker and gambling, like boxing or any kind of competition, have a very long history, especially in the West. So here we can see a picture. This is a wood carving, I think, from Germany from 550 years ago. And you can see they're playing cards in the picture. So poker is not a new game. It's very old. In fact, games of chance in general are very old. Games that use dice or cards or anything where there's some kind of chance or fortune in the game. So poker is part competition or game, and it's part chance, fortune, or luck, which means because it's a game, it's got winners and losers, but because it's chance or luck, it's got the idea of odds or fortune, things that are outside of your control. So here we've got a picture of a saloon, because in America, we often find gambling and bars or saloons connected to each other because a lot of gambling would be done in these places. As Americans moved west, you'd have these small towns out on the frontier, and the people that were moving out there didn't have a whole lot to do besides work. So when they wanted to relax, they would go maybe to the saloon, drink a little bit, and gamble a little. So you can see the idea of poker and these saloons connected, especially if you watch American Western movies. So most Westerns you watch in American cinema will have some kind of poker, gambling, or dice or something in the movie. So again, we can see here another black and white picture of some people playing poker. And a poster from the movie I talked about, The Gambler, where we get the phrase, "You've got to know when to hold 'em and know when to fold 'em." And that's Kenny Rogers here with the beard. So in poker, there's a few keywords that get used a lot in the different expressions. And here's a scene from the movie Casino Royale. It's a James Bond movie. So the different vocabulary that we're looking at here, first of all, are the cards. Now the cards come in a stack called a deck. We've also got the players, and we've got the chips. So you'll hear these words over and over again: cards, deck, chips. And here's some movies that focus on gambling in some way, usually poker or cards. And this is just a handful of movies. But these have been very popular movies in American culture. So you can see gambling, playing cards is something that's very popular and common in the culture. And I point that out so that you can understand the reason why these expressions are so popular is because it's still a part of the culture. So the first expression we're going to look at is to play the hand you're dealt. So here we can see this man who's called the dealer. He's holding the deck of cards. He's the one who's giving the cards to each of the players. So the dealer is the person who deals the cards. Dealt is the past tense of deal. The hand are the cards that you get. So if the dealer gives you cards, your cards are called your hand. To say that you play the hand you're dealt is to accept your current circumstances and to try to make the best of them. Because in poker, you don't have a choice over which cards you get. The dealer shuffles the deck of cards. He gives you whatever cards you get, and then you have to try and make the best of it. So the expression to play the hand you're dealt means to just accept whatever your circumstances are in life and to try to make the best of it. For example, I know you lost your job, but you can't sit and do nothing about it. Sometimes you've just got to play the hand you're dealt. The luck of the draw. So sometimes you draw a card in poker. And here you can see somebody who's drawing a card off of the deck. So sometimes the dealer will give you a card, but sometimes you draw a card. In some games you do, or if you're playing with friends, you'll take a card, which is what drawing a card is. However, you don't know what the card is going to be. You just take whatever's on top. So we call that the luck of the draw. So the luck of the draw is to be the result of chance and something that you have no control over. So it's kind of like you play the hand that you're dealt. The luck of the draw just means that you get whatever card is on the top. For example, I've been short my whole life, short like how tall you are. So I've been short my whole life. I wish I were taller, but I guess it's just the luck of the draw. So you have no control over how tall you are in life. That's just the luck of the draw. That's nature. So to have the cards of the deck stacked against you, normally when a dealer deals the cards, he shuffles the cards randomly. He doesn't try to control which cards are in which part of the deck. But sometimes if you have somebody who's dishonest, then they will stack the deck. Stacking the deck means that they're putting certain cards at certain places in the deck on purpose to either make themselves win or make somebody else that they are working with win. So this is where life as a game of poker is like a game, because in a game, remember, you have rules. And in poker, you have rules as well. So to stack the deck is to break the rules, is to try and cheat. To have the cards stacked against you or to have the deck stacked against you, as an expression, it means to have your chance at future success limited by factors over which you have no control. So, for example, I just can't seem to make any progress financially, so with my money. It's like the deck is stacked against me. So if I say that the deck is stacked against me, or if you say that the deck is stacked against you, what you're saying is that life, nature, somehow is trying to cheat you in the way that it's doing things. It's not just chance. It's like somebody's intentionally trying to cheat you somehow. To be dealt a bad hand is to have a disadvantage in life or in a situation that is out of one's control. So the first expression, you play the hand you're dealt, just means you get the cards that you get, or you get the situation in life that you get, and you try and make the best of it. To be dealt a bad hand is to say that the cards that you did get were bad cards. In this case, it means to have a disadvantage in life or in a situation out of your control. For example, people who are born poor are dealt a bad hand in life, which means when they start their lives, if their family's poor, then that's the bad hand. That's the bad situation. It's a disadvantage. It doesn't mean they're going to lose. So if you're born poor, it doesn't mean you're going to have a bad life, but it means you're starting with a bad situation. You're at a disadvantage. To play it close to the chest, or to play your cards close to the chest or the vest, is to keep your plans or intentions or tactics secret from everyone else. So here you can see a picture from a movie called The Sting. He got his cards. He's trying to make it so only he can see his cards. So he's holding them very close to his chest. This is his chest. Also, you see the clothing that he's wearing. The clothing here is called a vest. So that's why we can say close to the chest or close to the vest. It's the same thing here. But he's holding the cards close so nobody else can see them. Basically, if you're playing something close to the chest or playing it close to the vest, it means you're just trying to keep something a secret or not let everybody know what you're doing. For example, they wanted to play their cards close to the chest, so they didn't tell anyone about their marriage until after the wedding. And I actually had somebody say this to me one time. When my wife and I were getting married, I didn't go around telling everybody I worked with that I was getting married. But when I left on vacation to go get married, they're like, "Oh, where are you going?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to get married." They said, "Oh, you play your cards close to the chest," because I hadn't told them. To show or to tip your hand. So if you're playing it close to the chest or vest, you're trying to hide what you're doing, keep it a secret. But sometimes you show the cards to other people. So to show your hand is to reveal a thought or plan that you had been keeping secret or hidden. So Playing it close to the vest, you're trying to keep it hidden. Tipping your hand or showing your hand, that means you're revealing or showing whatever you were keeping hidden. So to show your hand is to let other people know what your plans are on purpose. To tip your hand is usually when you do it on accident or by accident. It means like you weren't holding the cards very close so other people could see your cards. You didn't mean for them to see your cards, but you just weren't being careful about it. So for example, he had been planning a secret vacation for his family, but he accidentally showed his hand or tipped his hand when he bought new suitcases. So let's say a guy is going to take his whole family on vacation, but he's keeping it a secret. But he needs to get ready for the vacation. So he goes and buys suitcases for everybody in the family. Well, when the family sees the suitcases, they're going to go, wait a minute, why are you buying suitcases? And then he's going to have to tell them. So he tipped his hand or showed his hand. To put or lay your cards on the table is to be honest and not hide what you're thinking or doing. So when you're playing poker, when it's the end of the round and everybody's got to show what they have, they put their cards on the table so that everybody can see what they have. And you can see that in the picture here. So to put your cards on the table or to lay your cards on the table is just to be completely honest. You're not hiding what you're thinking or what you're doing. For example, let's lay our cards on the table. I will only pay $6,000 for this car. Will you accept that? I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just telling you directly what I'm going to do. A big deal. So a big deal can have a couple of meanings. The first meaning is something important. For example, choosing the right person to marry is a very big deal. The picture here, you can see the 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. This would be a killer hand. It would be an awesome hand in poker, which if I got this, if the dealer gave me these cards, I would call that a big deal because it's a winning hand. So if you say something's a big deal, it's like it's very, very important. The other meaning of big deal is kind of sarcastic. We say it when someone thinks that something is not very important or impressive. So it's kind of the opposite of this. So a big deal can mean something important, but if somebody's saying it like as a joke, they're not really meaning it, they can say, big deal. That means they don't think it's impressive. It's not important. For example, you've got 3 cars, big deal. Who needs that many cars anyway? So I say big deal, but I don't really mean it's a big deal. I think it's dumb or unimportant. To call someone's bluff. So in poker, you have your cards. Sometimes they're good cards, sometimes they're not good cards, but whoever you're playing doesn't know what cards you have. So to go back to the picture from Casino Royale. So in this movie, James Bond, when he's telling the woman he's working with about playing cards, and she's thinking it's like a game of chance, only a game of chance. And he said, you're trying to play the person who's across from you. So he has his hand and he has his hand. They don't know what each other have. Now, James Bond might have some really bad cards, but he might pretend like he's got really good cards so that this guy will get scared and James Bond will win. So when you have cards that are not very good, like in the picture here, these aren't great cards. It depends on what other cards there are, but as this is, these aren't great cards. Now, if I pretend like I've got really good cards, then I'm bluffing. Bluffing is like it's telling a lie or making something up that's not true. To call is when you want to see people's cards. So like here, you can see their cards on the table because somebody called. That was the end of the round. So they would say, I call, which means let's see your cards. To call someone's bluff is you think that they're lying about having a good hand, and you say, okay, let's see your cards. That's calling their bluff. As an expression, it means to make someone prove that what they're saying is true, or to make someone prove that they really will do what they say because you don't believe them. So if somebody says something to you that you don't think is true, and you want to make them prove it somehow, you're calling their bluff. You think they're bluffing. For example, he said he had the new iPhone 10, but I call this bluff. He only had the iPhone 6. So if somebody's bragging, oh, I've got the iPhone 10, I've got the iPhone 10, but you don't see their phone, right? So you say, oh yeah, let's see it. You're calling their bluff, right? And then they pull out their phone and it's the iPhone 6. So this one, you'll see some changes, some variations in it. Have an ace in the hole, to have an ace up your sleeve, or to have something up your sleeve or someone's sleeve. This card here is an ace, and it's usually the high card in poker. Even though it only represents the number 1, it's usually the high card. So because it's a really good card, sometimes people would cheat by putting one up their sleeve or somewhere else. So to have an ace in the hole, to have an ace up your sleeve, or to have something up your sleeve is to have some secret information or advantage in a situation that one is waiting for the right moment to use. To have something up someone's sleeve is used when someone is being dishonest. So to have an ace in the hole is when you actually do honestly have an ace in your hand, but you're saving it for the right time to win whatever card game you're playing. To have an ace up your sleeve is when you're cheating. It's something that you didn't actually get. You're just hiding it to try and use it to win the game. For example, in presidential campaigns, candidates usually keep something or some very bad information about their opponents, the people they're running against, and wait to release it until a few weeks before the election as an ace in the hole. They call this the October surprise. So this is something that usually happens in presidential campaigns. So if you watch like the American presidential elections, wait until the end of September or early October, and usually there will be some very big bad news that comes out about both of the people running for president. So right now that's Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So wait until September or October, and you'll see some very bad information come out about both of them. They call that the October surprise because the election is in November. So what they're doing is trying to hurt the other person very close to the election so that they don't have time to make things better before the election. Now, the information that they have for the October surprise, they usually have had this information for a long time. They're just saving it till the very end so that they can try and beat the other person in the election. So this October surprise, we could call this an ace in the hole. Or we could call it, if it's some kind of sneaky information, we call it an ace up their sleeve. All right, if you play your cards right, again, remember you play the hand you're dealt in life. But if you play your cards right, then you might win the game. You might win at life. You might be successful. So to play your cards right is to do the correct things to achieve the desired result. So the picture here, for example, in this game called Texas Hold'em, each player has 2 cards. And in the middle, there are these 5 cards. And what you're doing is you're trying to match your 2 cards with any of the 3 cards on the table to make the best hand of cards that you can make. So if you're very smart with the way that you're playing, you can make a very good hand, which means you're playing your cards right. Now in life, what this means is that you have the situation that you're in, and if you are smart in that situation, if you're wise, then you can be successful or get the result that you want, doing the correct things to achieve what you want. That's playing your cards right. For example, if I play my cards right, I can save enough money to retire at age 40. Now, a wild card. So a wild card is someone or something whose behavior is sometimes unexpected. Sometimes when people are playing cards, poker or other card games, there'll be one card that they call the wild card. So the wild card here in this picture, the joker is a wild card. In normal poker, you don't play with jokers. But some people, when they're playing games with friends or family, they'll have a wild card, which is just some kind of a card. It could be a joker, it could be a 2 or whatever, that can represent any card that you want it to. But there's usually only 1 or 2 wild cards in the deck. So it's kind of like an unexpected thing. It's an unexpected card that can do unexpected things. So a wild card in life is someone or something whose behavior is sometimes unexpected. That's why if you've watched the Batman movies at all, the character called the Joker's always doing crazy and unexpected things. So for example, if there's a third major candidate in a presidential election, because usually in American presidential elections, there's only 2 candidates, the Democrat and the Republican. But sometimes there's a third. So the third candidate, if there is one, can be a wild card because no one knows how it will affect the election. So if right now, if there's Joe Biden and there's Donald Trump, now let's say a third person wants to run for president. we don't know how it's going to affect people's voting. Is it going to take votes away from Donald Trump? Is it going to take votes away from Joe Biden? What's it going to do? And it can change the election in unexpected ways. Similar to the wild card is a trump card. So a trump card is something that gives you an advantage over others. Now, if you look here in the picture, these are queens. But there are 4 different suits. So the suit is the symbol or the color on the card. So in regular poker, there are 4 suits. There's spades, hearts, clubs, and diamonds. Depending on which game you're playing, these different suits have different values. So let's say if you and me are playing cards, and we both have the exact same cards, except that we have different suits. Right? So let's say I have 2 aces and you have 2 aces. Well, who wins? It depends on who has the higher value card. So I think usually the spades are the highest and the clubs or the diamonds are the lowest value. So if I have an ace and it's a spade and you have an ace and it's a diamond, then I would win because I have the trump suit. So trump here, it doesn't mean Donald Trump. It actually comes from the word triumph. And triumph means victory or winning, right? So a trump card is the triumph card. It's the winning card. It's the strongest card. So as an expression, a trump card is something that gives you an advantage over others. For example, for rich people, money is often their trump card to get whatever they want in a situation. So they can use money as a trump card, as a way to get what they want, as a way to win, as a way to triumph in the situation. To play the something card. Now, this one doesn't get used in formal conversation. This is more informal. It's to try and get an advantage in a situation by focusing on a particular political issue, usually race, sex, religion, or something else. They call this identity politics. So when you divide people into different groups based on their personal identities, what race they are, what sex they are, what religion they are, etc. So to play the something card is to focus on one of these issues in order to get an advantage in a situation. For example, politicians often play the race card in order to gain votes. So the something here could be race. It could be the woman card, play the woman card. It's not necessarily a polite way to talk when you say that, to play the race card, but you'll hear it or read it if you're reading political news online, or if you're listening to political commentary. You might hear them say like the race card or the woman card, or some other kind of card like that. That's what they're talking about. It's some kind of a group of people, and they'll bring it up to get an advantage in a situation. Oh, as an example of this, when Barack Obama was president, because he was the first black president, if somebody disagreed with him, they would often, people on his side of politics would say that this person was a racist because they disagreed with him. They're racist because he's black. Now the person, if I say I don't like what Barack Obama's doing, they say, oh, because you're a racist, right? And I'd say, stop playing the race card. It means don't do that. Don't think that it's all about race. It's not about race. To fold in poker, when you're quitting the hand, you fold. So you can see here, this guy's throwing down the cards because he's quitting. He's not going to bet any more money. So to fold is to quit or to fail. For example, many small businesses fold within the first year. It means they quit or they fail within the first year. To chip in. So these here are poker chips. For anybody who's playing the game, they have to put some chips in the middle of the table in what they call the pot. So if there are 4 people playing a hand of cards, then all of them have to put money in if they want to keep playing. If they don't put money in, then they have to fold. They have to get out of the hand. So to chip in is to contribute money in a situation where others are also contributing money. For example, you can say, I'll chip in for dinner. It just means I'm adding money to the other money that everybody else is adding. And you'll hear this one a lot when people are going out for food together, or if they're buying pizza or something, you'll say, oh, I'll chip in, oh, I'll chip in. And that's coming from the poker chips. When the chips are down, we use this expression when you're in a very difficult or dangerous situation, especially one that makes you understand the true value of people or things. For example, one day when the chips are down, you will know who your true friends are. So this expression, when the chips are down, comes from when the chips are down, when they're in the table or on the table like this. So all of this here represents money that these people are betting. So because they've bet this money, the chips are here. They're down on the table, in the middle of the table. And that means that they could possibly lose this money if they've bet that money. So if the chips are down, then they could lose something. So this is serious because they could lose. So we can use this in life for very difficult or dangerous situations, because then you know what's true. Because when the chips are down like this, then everybody has to show their cards. Remember to showing your hand, or putting your cards on the table. So when the chips are down, then you get to really see what cards everybody has. You get to see what's true, right? So when the chips are down, you get to see what's true in life, what's true in the game. I'd be willing to bet, or I'm willing to bet. This is an expression that people say when they're certain that something is true or will happen. For example, I'd be willing to bet that the teacher is going to give us a pop quiz on Monday. So I'd be willing to bet here just means that I'm so confident or certain about what I'm saying that I would bet money on it. And you'll even hear, like, usually kids or something, they'll say, oh, I'll bet you $10 that I can slam dunk the basketball or something like that. They're just trying to show that they're certain or sure about what they're saying. They can actually, I'll bet you $10, I'll bet you $20, or I'd be willing to bet. Don't bet on it, or I wouldn't bet on it. This is kind of the opposite. This is said when someone thinks that something is not likely to happen or to be true. For example, Donald Trump promised to build the wall, but I wouldn't bet on it. He has to get support and funding from Congress to make it happen. So you can use this with most politicians that are running for president. They promise all of these things. Well, they promise free college, or they promise they're going to build a wall or whatever. But in order to do it, they have to get the support of Congress, usually. So you can say, I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet money that this is going to happen, which means I don't think it's likely to happen. It's not true. All bets are off is an expression we use to say that if a particular event happens, then your current prediction, agreement, deal, etc. will no longer apply. For example, your mother and I will pay for your college, but if your GPA drops below a C, then all bets are off. That just means whatever agreement we had is no longer true. It's no longer going to happen. So all bets are off means that people can no longer bet. The game is over. We're stopping the game. That's really what it means. And here we've got a picture of an empty casino. So this is a casino and there's nobody there gambling because they closed it. This actually, I think, is a recent picture because of the flu that's going around. They've closed, or they're starting to close, most of the casinos in Las Vegas. So because of that, all bets are off. Nobody can bet because the casinos are closed. So all bets are off. We use it to say that if a certain thing happens, then whatever agreements or deals we had before are they're null or void, or they no longer apply. If something is a safe bet, it can mean a couple of things. A safe bet could be something that involves little risk. For example, investing money in property, like houses, is usually a safe bet because property values almost always go up over time. So a safe bet is something that you're likely to win on whatever you have. And you can see here the cards, an ace and a king of the same suit. So these cards, probably this person is going to win the hand, or they're very likely to. So if they bet money, we can say that it's a safe bet because they're likely to win. Or it can mean something that will probably happen or is probably true. For example, it's a safe bet that Apple will continue to lead the computer industry for the next decade. So this is being used as a prediction for what will be true in the future. It's a safe bet that this is going to happen. It's almost like saying I'd be willing to bet. To hedge your bets is to protect yourself against making the wrong choice. So you can see up here a picture of these bushes. So this is called a hedge. And what the hedge is doing here is working like a fence to protect the yard, to protect this house here. So to hedge your bets is when you make bets in gambling or in poker that even if you lose, you can still win somehow. So like here, maybe somebody is playing 3 or 4 different hands, because let's say this one loses. Let's say this one person is doing this one, this one, this one, and this one. Let's say this is all the same person playing these hands. Well, they're playing 4 because, even if this one loses, this one might win. And if this one loses, this one might win. So even if 2 of them lose, 2 of them might win. So they're trying to hedge their bets. They're trying to protect their bets. So to hedge your bets is to protect yourself against making the wrong choice. For example, I think I did well on the test, but I'm going to hedge my bets and do the extra credit too. So maybe you took a test and maybe there's extra credit. Maybe you don't know what your score was on the test and you feel like you did pretty good, but just to be safe. So hedging your bets is doing something just to be safe, just in case. You do the extra credit as well. To bet your bottom dollar is to say that you're completely certain that something is true or will happen. So if you say, I'm willing to bet, right? You can say, I'm willing to bet that Donald Trump is going to win the election. That means that I'm very certain that it's going to happen. Now, if I say I bet my bottom dollar, then that means I'm very, very certain. I'm completely certain that something is going to happen. And what it is like if you look at this stack of chips here, this all represents money. So the bottom one here, their last chip, that is what we would call their bottom dollar. It means all of their money. So if you say I bet my bottom dollar, it means I bet all of my money. That's something. So if you're betting all of your money, you're very certain that you're going to win, right? Maybe you won't win, but it means you're sure. You're very, very sure, completely sure. So, for example, I'd bet my bottom dollar that Hillary Clinton won't run for president again. Now, I wrote this one 2 years ago, and sure enough, she didn't run for president again this time. So I was correct in this bet. So I bet my bottom dollar. I didn't actually bet any money on it, but you get the idea. So your bottom dollar is just all of the money that you have, down to your last dollar. To double down on something is to continue to do something in an even more determined way than before. So in another card game called Blackjack, in Blackjack, you're trying to get a point value of 21. You're trying to get 21 points in your cards, or close to it. So there's you and there's the dealer, and whoever has the better hand, closer to 21, is the one that wins without going over 21. Now, if you get dealt a hand at first, so you get dealt 2 cards. Here you can see there's a 6 and there's a 5, which means 11. Now, there's a lot of cards in the deck that equal 10. Like the king here, the king equals 10. So together, the 11 and the 10 equals 21, which is a perfect hand. So let's say I get these 2 cards on my first deal. Then I have the choice to double down, which means that this was my original bet. Now, if I get these 2 cards, then I can double down, double my bet here, because I'm saying that I think that the next card is going to give me a good hand. So I'm doubling my bet. I'm so confident in what I've got that I'm doubling what I have. But the thing is you only get 1 more card when you do this. So to double down as an expression is to continue to do something in an even more determined way than before. So, I think this is a good hand. I'm going to double my bet. I'm going to go twice as much as I was. For example, instead of admitting he made a mistake, he doubled down and called the other person a liar. So if 2 people are having a disagreement about what's true, then you think, oh, no, I still think that they're just lying. So you call them a liar. It means you're saying more than you were saying before. Now, here's an example I just saw recently in the newspaper. It's from the Minneapolis Star Tribune. Minneapolis officials, so the government, double down on call for people to spread out. So that means that they warned people to stay away from each other, the social distancing. So they told them to do that before, but now they're even more sure that this is true, that people should spread out, not be by each other. So they're doubling down, means they're continuing to tell people to do this, to stay 6 feet away from each other, even more than they were before. Like they're saying it's stronger or with more energy than they were before. To go all in is to fully commit to something, giving or prepared to give all of one's energy and resources towards something. So I am so sure that I'm going to win that I'm going to put all of my money in on the bet. For example, if you guys want to go to Hawaii over the winter break, I'm all in. That means I'll completely give all of my energy, my time, my money to making this happen. So this is similar to betting your bottom dollar, but betting your bottom dollar is making a prediction about something. Going all in is actually doing it. To take a gamble on something or to gamble on something is to do something that could produce a very bad result or an unpleasant result. Because gambling in general, you're betting on something. You don't know what's going to happen though, so you could lose very badly. You might win a lot, but you might lose a lot. So gambling is really any of these games where you're betting money. So to say that somebody's gambling with something means that it could produce a very bad or an unpleasant result. For example, you're taking a big gamble not getting car insurance, because if you get into an accident with a car without car insurance, then you could be financially ruined because of that. So you might not get into an accident, but you never know, you could. And then if you don't have insurance, then it's game over. And you can see here another newspaper headline, betting with taxpayer money. Push to resume construction on flood diversion is a multi-million-dollar gamble. So they're saying that the city is spending many millions of dollars to build this flood diversion for Fargo to divert the waters from the Red River. Now, are they going to need a multi-million-dollar flood diversion? They might. You never know. But if they don't need it, then they spent all of this money, all this taxpayer money, on something they didn't need. But if they do need it, then it's a good reason to spend the money. So they're saying we just don't know what's going to happen in the future. You might be wasting people's money, or it might be a good investment. We're not sure. If something is high stakes, or if we're saying that the stakes are high, the stakes are how much money is being bet. So you can see here there's a lot of chips, which means this is a lot of money, which means this is what we call a high stakes game, because the stakes are the amount of money that you're betting. So to say something is high stakes or the stakes are high is involving serious risks if there's no success, right? Now, if I go and I play cards, I gamble. If I'm only betting $10, that's not high stakes, right? Because if I lose $10, it's not going to hurt me very much. But if I bet $10,000, then that would be high stakes, because if I lose $10,000, then that has very serious risks. I might not be able to pay my mortgage. I might lose my house. So a high stakes test, for example, is usually one that will give you a failing grade if you fail. I think I'm missing a word here. So if a test is high stakes, then that means that it could really severely hurt your grade if you fail the test. And then here we can see this is a cover for a music album from a group called De La Soul. It's a hip hop group. And the name of the album is Stakes is High, because they come from Philadelphia. So for them, the decisions you make could be life or death. To say that something is at stake means that it's in danger of being lost. For example, about 3,000 jobs are at stake if the company closes down. So at stake in poker is anything that's being bet. Any of the money that's being bet is the stake, right? So to say that something's at stake means you're in danger of losing it, because if you're betting money in poker, then you might lose that money. That's what's at stake. So here, about 3,000 jobs are at stake if the company closes down. That means that you could lose up to 3,000 jobs if the company closes down. To pass the buck. This one is a historical one for poker. So in poker in the old days, you would have a group of people playing poker together. They would take turns dealing the cards, because if you're the one dealing the cards, then you could possibly cheat. Well, because they don't trust each other, because there's money, right? They would take turns dealing the cards. To know whose turn it was, they would have what they called the buck. And it comes from this kind of like a knife here. So this is a knife made with like a buckhorn handle. A buck is a male deer, because you know the male deer has horns on its head. So this is part of a horn from a male deer. Male deer is called a buck. So this knife is called a buck knife. So they would use this. Whoever was dealing the knife would be by them. And then when it was somebody else's turn, they would pass the buck to the next person. That means it's your turn to deal. People obviously don't do this anymore. There are these chips called, the dealer, the buck, or the button. So whoever's turn it is to deal would have this. So if I passed it to somebody else, then that means it's their turn to deal. The phrase pass the buck means to leave a difficult problem for someone else to deal with. So let's say I don't want to deal and somebody gives me the buck, right? And I don't want to deal. I just take it and pass it to the next guy. What I'm doing is I'm handing him the responsibility because I don't want to take the responsibility. There was actually an American president who had a sign that said the buck stops here, which means that he's going to take responsibility for what's going on. So to pass the buck, for example, you're the one who broke the window. Don't try to pass the buck to me. Because when siblings, brothers and sisters, if something happens, like a window gets broken or something gets broken, they try to blame the other one, right? They're trying to pass the buck. Poker face. Poker face is an expression on someone's face that does not show what the person is thinking or feeling. Because again, you don't want the other person to know if you have good cards or bad cards. You're trying to trick them into thinking maybe you have good cards so that they'll, quit and you'll get the money. So they have this thing called poker face where you're trying not to show any emotion at all. And you can see this guy here, he's wearing sunglasses and a hat, and he has no expression on his face because he doesn't want them to know if he has good cards or not good cards. So we call this the poker face. So poker face is an expression on your face that does not show what the person is thinking or feeling, because they're trying to not show what they're thinking or feeling. So if you say somebody has a good poker face, then that means they do good at not showing if they're happy or they're sad or whatever. For example, he has a good poker face, so I couldn't tell if he was serious or joking. And then here we can see an album cover from Lady Gaga, because she had this song called